So I saw that on your bio, your profile on the University of Oregon's website, that you were an investigative journalist in El Salvador, correct?
Yeah.
So can you explain to me like that experience and how you got yourself into that, and also how you dealt with newspapers and media that censored that you found that were
Yeah.
censoring news to the
Yeah.
public?
Well, when I went to the Prensa Gráfica, I started as a political journalist, and then I was moved because I have some issues with one of the editors to the economic section for a month, and then I went to the investigative investigative journalist magazine called Focus, and I think it was really interesting because we all knew about censor. I mean, I never received directly censorship, but we all know what are the topics that we couldn't talk about it, and we knew that it's easy to talk about politicians, but it's difficult to talk about business people. It's difficult to talk about banks, and in El Salvador, that's what happened. Maybe it's the same here, but I think there's more like self censorship there.
Yeah, we've been talking about that in my global communications course about self censorship and how journalists are having to practice that often, especially with what you said is like with speaking about politicians. Would you
Yeah.
say in El Salvador that was kind of a risk that a lot of journalists, such as yourself, would take if you were, to report stories about politicians that you put yourself at risk of putting yourself in danger in El Salvador, or was it?
I don't think politicians was a big deal. I think more back then. Now I think things are changing because people are more covering gang violence, and that's a really hard thing, or drug violence is a different ballgame. But back then, covering news, politician wasn't a big deal. Was covering more self censorship was about covering banks, covering business who have advertising in the media, on the newspaper, and yeah, for that we have to figure out a way. I published an article about historical article about airplane accident in 1995, and it was really successful. But at the same time, the people from the airline complained, and why we're bringing back this issue from 1995 to 2005, and because it gives the impression that their airplanes were not safe. But I think the private sector in Central America and El Salvador has even more power sometimes to censor things than politicians. And now the drug traffic, I don't know. I don't think it's in the level of El Salvador, it's in the level of Mexico or Colombia. In case that the drug lords have I think those places were really complicated. But I think it's more complicated now because there's a lot of a theory work between policemen, police women, and like the police and gang members.
Do you think I know like you said the internet's kind of one of the biggest things that has affected journalism, but can you think of any other like main changes that have affected journalism and media representation in the past few years?
That's a good question. I sometimes I don't think is I think people blame the internet for everything. I just think the problem is that also and it's a good question, and I think there's the decreasing of wages in journalism is very strong. Sometimes business use the internet as an excuse for not sharing more of the profits they're making or increasing the wages. And I think that is something that's happening. I mean, the wages are getting depressed. But at the same time, we need more journalists. We need more people to tell the stories. And I think that's another aspect of that. What's changing in the business in the business of media is how you share the profit to other people, how you create something, and how you don't lay off journalists, and how you keep your newsroom, how you fight censorship, and how you create your small, perhaps, news outlet. But I think it's about political economy. It's about also how big media conglomerates don't want to pay enough money to don't want to pay enough to young journalists. Or yeah, that's I think the difficult part, which I think is very bad because we need more journalists than ever. Good journalism is good. I mean, I do PR, I research, I mean, I connect also public relations with politics, but at the same time, you need independent people to do that work. Like, there are a lot of things that are happening in this country, not in my country, who need to be reported. But I think it's the concept that now our journalists are more disposable than before, and also they don't say the truth, they're lying. That's a fact that I think news conglomerates are using to reduce wages. That's what I might say. Also, there's a culture of not organizing, like not unionize in journalists because of objectivity. And in other places, like in other fields, there are more stronger unions who can fight for like better wages, also sexual harassment, things like that. The journalists, they haven't built a strong labor conscious about getting together and try to get better deal from the business, business community.
Okay.